You will all kneel before the fallen. What's up everyone, James here, and I'm bringing the sequel to Transformers War Within. This is Transformers War Within Dark Ages. This series opens with a bang, and I see why now. You guys have been saying this trilogy is one of the best Transformers stories ever. If you're new here, I'll have a link to the full story video of the first series below the like button and at the end of the video. And make sure you hit that like button. So this opens on Cybertron in Kaon, with Optimus Prime and Megatron battling. Now this series never states this, I had to look it up, but 5 million years have passed since the end of War Within. And we see the Autobots and Decepticons' Great War still continues. Megatron tries to escape through a space bridge. Optimus dives toward him, trying to prevent him from escaping, while saying, "We're not finished, you and I." Megatron calls him a maniac and says, "The space bridge is only configured for one. Do you know what you've done?" Optimus replies, "I know." And he tackles Megatron into the space bridge and it explodes. They both disappear in the explosion. Later, the explosion caused a crack in space and reality that has brought about the return of one of the most powerful Transformers to ever exist. One of the 13 original Transformers created by Primus himself. Some would say he is the strongest of them. He is the Fallen. Now, the Fallen from the Bay Transformers movie looked cool, but he pales in comparison to the original. We see the Fallen's body is covered in molten flames. It's just spewing out of him, and we're going to witness how powerful he is. He says, "Cybertron, well, it's been a long time." Now, this is officially the first time the Fallen made his appearance in the Transformers universe. He was created by Simon Furman, the writer behind the War Within trilogy. Artist Pat Lee, with contributions by the artists of this series, Andrew Wildman, and Don Figueroa, the artist behind the first War Within series. Now, within this series, pun intended, we don't get the Fallen's backstory. It wasn't until Transformers The Ultimate Guide, which was released in 2004, a year after this series, also written by Simon Furman, that we got his full backstory. So, when Primus and Unicron clashed as planetary entities, Primus forged the first 13 Transformers to aid him. The Fallen was one of the 13. He was tasked with managing entropy, the orderly breakdown of existence to pave the way for new creation. However, he became fixated on destruction, losing focus on restoration and moderation. His pursuit of forbidden knowledge, called the Dark Science, drew him to Unicron, who corrupted him and he swore loyalty to, thus becoming the Fallen. He eventually attempted to betray and undermine Primus, but failed. He fled to Unicron and both were consumed by a black hole. That's where he's been until now. From here we transition to some years later. Optimus Prime and Megatron are thought to be lost since their fight, and things are not bad but dire on Cybertron, especially for the Autobots. We see Iacon is still a wasteland after the destruction of Cybertron's planetary turbines at the end of the last series. Hound, Huffer, and Mirage return to the Autobots' base, what they call the Auto Base. Hound informs Prowl of a new problem, but Prowl responds to which problem he is referring to. This is where we see how bad things are. The Autobots are fighting a war on multiple fronts. They're dealing with a large force of Decepticons led by Shockwave at the Callus front, the Ultracons led by Ratbat at the Tagon Heights, and the Predacons led by Starscream at Uriah's borders. Hound reports that the mobile assault base the Decepticons have been working on will be fully operational by the next subcycle, and its target will be their eastern perimeter. Prowl mentions that their forces are already stretched thin. He asks Jazz, "Can we spare the numbers?" And Jazz answers, "No, but we'll muster some kind of response. Remember when we were all one big happy family?" So what's happened here is, like the Decepticons, the Autobots have also split up into separate factions. Prowl leads the Autobots, Grimlock leads the Lightning Strike Coalition, which is such a badass name, and Springer leads the elite Autobot unit, the Wreckers. The next place we go to is in Callus, where another faction resides. Bludgeon, Mindwipe, and Bugly have created a new faction that's really more so a cult called the Chaos Trinity. If you've watched my most recent Beast Wars video, they're basically like the Blentrons, except they don't worship Unicron or seek his return. They're looking to gain more power for themselves. Also, instead of their power coming from Unicron's Engelma energy, the Chaos Trinity gets its power from the dark science. It's power that resides in every Transformer in a dormant state, that's related to the power of Primus and Unicron, but it's not outright called Engelma energy or some form of Energon. They're performing some ritual, and Bludgeon calls out to the dark science to bring down fire and fury on their forsworn enemies. The Fallen interrupts, mocking them, saying dramatic beyond words, but all show and no real substance. Bludgeon uses the dark science power to conjure a swarm of insectoid robots to attack the Fallen, who literally smacks them away as if they were nothing. He offers the Trinity forbidden fruit, time-lost secrets, and power beyond measure. He says, "You will serve me, and in return, I will unlock doors into the farthest reaches of the impossible." When Bludgeon replies, "We serve no one," the Fallen says, "Acolytes then. Disciples, choose your own terminology, but choose wisely." He gets up close and personal. Bludgeon ends up agreeing and asks, "What is it you want us to do?" The Fallen answers, "I seek 4 angles in the geometry of dissolution. They must be isolated, destabilized, made mutable, ready for the unbinding." Now, I'm going to explain everything about the angles of geometry of dissolution and the unbinding soon. In the meantime, we transition to Starscream and his Predacons. Now, these aren't the Beast Wars Predacons or the traditional G1 Predacons. We're never given a reason as to why Starscream named his faction the Predacons in this series. However, the TF Wiki theorizes that Starscream named them after the G1 Predacons because in the main Dreamwave Transformer series, the Predacons were known as legendary Decepticon warlords who were banished from Cybertron to the planet Beast. I couldn't find anything stating why they were banished, but more than likely, Starscream named his unit after them because he was a fan of their legend, and the name carries weight and respect. Now, he and his crew are transporting valuable raw energon to this spaceport that they recently stole. Once they land, Starscream realizes that his receiving team isn't here. That's when the head of Hardcase lands at his feet. He begins to panic, saying, "Oh no." Grimlock replies, "Oh yes, Lightning Strike Coalition, kick some pred butt." They come out in full force, ambushing the Predacons, and it's so awesome. Now, Grimlock's team, the Lightning Strike Coalition, is the precursor to the Dinobots. So, besides all the usual Dinobot members being a part of this unit, there's Inferno, Cup, Smokescreen, and Ironhide. This is really a dangerous commando unit. They straight up dominate the Predacons. Grimlock ends up ordering his team to fall back, which confuses Starscream, but it's because they got what they came for. They steal his ships that were carrying the raw energon, and to no surprise, Starscream screams into the sky, "No." Now, the Fallen takes his acolytes deep below Cybertron. He tells them Grimlock is one of the angles of the geometry of dissolution. They all enter this massive chamber. The Fallen has brought the Chaos Trinity to the Well of Allsparks, also known as the Seal of Primus. So, the Fallen's goal is to gather the angles of the geometry of dissolution, who are 4 Transformers that possess unique sparks loaded with genetic potential. The Fallen wants to perform the unbinding ceremony with them because together they form a key that will open the seal of Primus. Once it's open, Primus will awaken, and it will allow Unicron to locate Cybertron. From here, we're going to transition to sometime later. The Fallen lets Bludgeon and the other acolytes know he is pleased with the progress they've made on the unbinding process. Bludgeon mentions, instead of praise, he would like something more tangible, like this dark power he mentioned before. The Fallen grips Bludgeon's face and says, "Very well, a taste." He reaches into Bludgeon's mind, showing him all the forbidden secrets and power. It looks like a straight up nightmare. When Bludgeon comes out of it, he asks, "What did you do to me?" The Fallen answers, "I opened a door into the realm within, a dark, forgotten corner of every Transformer, a relic of what we once were. Serve me well, and next time I will leave the door ajar." This display of the Fallen's power and the possibility of the power they can obtain ensures the loyalty of Bludgeon, Bugly, and Mindwipe to him. Now, the next Autobot faction we go to is the Wreckers at Tagan Heights. Now, they're here because they've been preventing Ratbat and his Ultracons from taking over this territory for some time. The reason why, as Springer explains, whoever controls the Heights controls over 40% of Cybertron's manufacturing potential. If it were to be turned into a full-scale weapons production, it would shift the balance of power. They patrol the area, and Springer is sure Ratbat is close by and is about to pull his craziest offensive push yet. When he heads to higher ground to get a better view of the Heights, his theory gets confirmed because Ratbat has unleashed Devastator, who is charging toward them, rampaging. Now, another combiner group around that we see next are the Protector Bots, who are discussing a rumor they heard about the Constructicons having picked a side in the war. The reason why this is important has to do with something called the Crisis Intervention Accord. This doesn't get explained in this series, but it does in the Transformers Ultimate Guidebook. So, between War Within and this series, the Combiners have become a new, powerful weapon in the Great War. For centuries, the Transformers have worked on the fusing of multiple minds and bodies, creating a mass intellect. However, all of those experiments failed because the electro-neural meshing was disrupted by strong minds, which overpowered the process instead of suppressing the weaker ones. After the events of War Within, the Constructicons were the ones who eventually accomplished what others could not by stabilizing the electro-neural meshing through a hyper-processor vortex. They tried the process on themselves, creating Devastator. Although the experiment worked, Devastator's collective mind struggled because all of his components had to agree before acting, which often made him less intelligent. Despite this drawback though, Megatron valued Devastator's power and ordered more research into shared consciousness. The Autobots eventually obtained the mass intellect blueprints, and the Autobot Science Harmonium completely redesigned the process, creating a far more efficient combiner. Basically, a more intelligent one. This became an arms race between the Autobots and the Decepticons, both factions racing to build a superior number of combiner forces called special teams. The Autobots had created the Protector Bots and Aerial Bots, whereas the Decepticons countered by creating the Stunticons and Combaticons. Now, after the disappearance of Optimus Prime and Megatron, after both armies splintered into different factions, they all agreed not to use the Combiners in the war and to stop the creation of them, since they proved to be destructive. So they all signed the Crisis Intervention Accord, declaring the special teams non-aligned. They could remain neutral as a whole or act individually. This makes a lot of sense as to why they all agree to it, because the Combiners are like walking nuclear bombs when you think about it. So to avoid mutually assured destruction, they agreed not to use them and take them off the board. But Ratbat has basically said, screw the Accord, unleashing Devastator to destroy the Wreckers, and because of that, the Protector Bots decide to get involved and put him down before Ratbat can succeed. Another reason why they decided to get involved is to deter the other factions from getting the idea to go ahead and use the other combiners. Now, the Wreckers are doing their best against him, but it's not enough. Springer lands a shot on Devastator, who gets pissed and backhands him so hard that he's sent flying. He ends up landing tangled in these wires. As Springer tries to reach for his blaster, someone approaches, saying, "Finally, all the times you frustrated my efforts to extend Ultracon territory, stayed one leap ahead of my most lethal calculations, and now I have you where I want you." This someone is Ratbat with his Ultracons, who have Springer dead to rights. It's a toss-up for me between Ratbat's form in this universe or Ratbat's form in IDW's Megatron Origin series as to which I like the most. Ratbat says to Springer, "This planet is ripe for exploitation, and yet you insist on playing the role of protector. It's a vanity of sorts to believe that you can actually make a difference. All the heroes are dead, Springer, and momentarily, you will be too." Now, the Protector bots arrive and form into Defensor. Just when Ratbat is about to tear apart Springer, an earthquake occurs, which gives Springer a moment to grab his blaster, but when he points it at Ratbat, they both get distracted and realize the source of the quake is Defensor and Devastator battling, destroying the area around them. At the autobase, who arrives at the empty base, seeing the chaos taking place all over Cybertron on the monitors, is Jetfire. So, Jetfire going from Decepticon to Autobot is another thing that occurred between War Within and Dark Ages. He has recently returned from a metallurgical survey. Okay, before we continue Jetfire's journey in this series, because he will be a big part of it, Springer and Ratbat begin their fight as Devastator and Defensor continue theirs. Springer is pissed with Ratbat because he broke the accord. Ratbat makes it clear though he doesn't care. He's willing to use any means necessary to take Tagan Heights. Returning to Jetfire for a moment, he explains to Trailbreaker and Bluestrake, after reviewing all the current conflicts going on, that he notices a pattern and believes someone behind the scenes is influencing it all. Jetfire will be reaching out to someone who also notices the pattern, and you won't expect who it is. He then asks where Prowl, Jazz, and everyone else are because he's never seen the base this empty before. They answer that their forces are stretched thin, so they all went to check out the Decepticons' mobile command base. Jetfire wonders, since he's the one who gave a full detailed report on the base, why wasn't he contacted? This is just a small indication that at least some of the Autobots don't trust him fully. Of course, Jetfire is right because we go to the Chaos Trinity. Bugley and Mindwipe return from a mission where they have set up one of their targets successfully. They ask Bludgeon about their plan to get Grimlock. Bludgeon answers that the key to Grimlock is his own delightfully skewed sense of right and wrong, crime and punishment. Pushed in the right direction, he will deliver himself and bring the third target with him. Now, the battle between Defensor and Devastator intensifies. It's constantly going back and forth. Neither is gaining the upper hand. The big problem is they're causing so much damage to the heights. Even the Wreckers almost become collateral damage. It isn't until Springer says to Defensor, "That's enough. Look around you, Defensor. Think where you are. I can almost excuse Devastator, but I thought they made you later model combiners with a touch more in the smarts department. Protector bots, isn't that what you guys call yourselves? Well, start protecting." Devastator takes advantage of Defensor being distracted and puts him down. He then grabs Springer and begins to crush him. While Devastator is distracted, the Protector bots separate and take a cord and plug it into his body. It's actually kind of funny that Devastator has an outlet on his body, but okay. The Protector bots then overload him with a huge burst of electricity, forcing him to separate into his individual components. After everything is over, the Protector bots admit to Springer that he was right. They need to understand their combined self better before risking another incident like this. Until then, they think 5 minds are better than 1. Transitioning back to the auto base, Jetfire is deep in his research on the patterns of conflicts going on. He realizes his search for the answer as to who's behind it all would be easier with another mind, especially one that equals his own in intellect. So he ends up reaching out to Shockwave. He reveals to him that the Autobots still don't trust him and he feels like an outsider. Shockwave responds asking why he should be inclined to trust him either, especially when he used to believe in the Decepticon ideology and yet chose to be an Autobot. Jetfire tells him he knows he's come to the same conclusion that someone is influencing events on Cybertron for their own ends. And since they both deal in science and logic, the logical response is to combine their efforts. Shockwave tells him to meet him in 5 Breams, which basically translates to 42 minutes at the neutral territories. We then go to Prowl leading the Autobots arriving at the Praetorius Wharf, looking for the Decepticons' mobile command base. They stop when they suddenly feel a vibration beneath them. That's when they realize they're on top of the base. It transforms into the Decepticons' Titan, Trypticon. Prowl panics, ordering the Autobots to get into defensive formation and hit them with everything they have. Trypticon, gloating, says, "Yes, please do. I'm rather in need of a proper workout. It's really very good of you to volunteer." Now, if you guys are hoping that Metroplex is going to show up, I'm sorry to break your hearts, he won't be showing up. Now, elsewhere on Cybertron, who's witnessing the Autobots in trouble and was listening in on Jetfire and Shockwave's private communication, is Grimlock. We're going to see what he plans to do in a minute. In the meantime, Prowl and the rest of the Autobots at the wharf are having a very bad day, because Trypticon is too powerful. None of their attacks is affecting him. Prowl realizes this, and the fact that they're out in the open exposed, hoping they can outrun the Titan and give it some moving targets. What's funny is Trypticon overhears Prowl calling him an it, and he says, "It has a name. Trypticon, use it." Trypticon really is toying with them because he offers to take off his optical sensors and count to 100 to give them a better chance at survival. He fires on skids and then leaps on top of the tunnel he was trying to escape in, and it seems like he crushes him to death. Prowl witnesses this and sends a radio message to all available Autobot units to head to the wharf. From here, we go to Uriah, with Grimlock leading his team to Jetfire and Shockwave's meetup location. Swoop makes it clear to Grimlock that he and the rest of the Dinobots disagree with going after Jetfire, because though they don't care what happens to Prowl and his team, they want a chance to fight the Decepticons' mobile command base. Grimlock tells them that the mission is not up for debate, and that he's long suspected Jetfire of playing double agent, and now he has proof. Slag chimes in and mentions to Grimlock that the real fight is the other way, and he doesn't need all of them to deal with Jetfire. When Grimlock tells Slag he's the boss, so he'll follow his orders, it isn't until Swoop points out to Grimlock that if the Decepticons take out the Autobots, they'll be coming for them next. So Grimlock decides to allow them to go and aid them. Now Jetfire and Shockwave meet at the neutral territories, and they basically both come to an agreement that someone is behind the scenes causing the increase in conflicts between the factions. At that moment, they get ambushed by the Chaos Trinity. I love that no matter the universe, except maybe the Shattered Glass universe, Shockwave has a deadly reputation, because Bludgeon says, "Once upon a time, I would have never dared go one-on-one with you, Shockwave. But these days, you won't believe the things we can do." The Chaos Trinity overwhelms Shockwave, and Jetfire sure does take his sweet time joining in on the fight. Shockwave gets taken out of commission due to Bugley's electro stingers that cause paralysis. When Jetfire finally pulls his blaster, it's already too late. Mindwipe, using his hypnotic optics, locks his mind in a trance. It's like he's frozen in time. Bludgeon tells Jetfire that they came not for Shockwave, but for him. So Jetfire is another angle in the geometry of dissolution. As the Chaos Trinity is taking his body to the Fallen, we learn through their conversation that Bludgeon was the one who made Grimlock aware of Jetfire and Shockwave's secret communication line, and that he hoped Grimlock would show up hot-headed with his Energon sword in hand, ready to take out Jetfire, making him an easy target to ambush and take down. Grimlock, jumping off a nearby tower, says, "It goes to show you know slag about me, and even less on tactics." He ambushes the Chaos Trinity. I love Grimlock in this universe because this is the second time he outsmarts those who underestimate his intelligence. Starscream did it in the last series, and it nearly cost him and the rest of the Seekers their lives. And now, it's costing the Chaos Trinity. He successfully takes down the Trinity. Jetfire thanks him for saving him, but Grimlock tells him he's here to execute him for treason. Jetfire does his best to talk him down, trying to tell him about someone behind the scenes, manipulating and causing the sudden escalation between the factions, someone the Chaos Trinity seems to be working for. Grimlock makes it clear he doesn't care. When he's about to land a killing blow on Jetfire, that's when the Fallen shows up. Grimlock tries to strike him with his Energon sword, but the Fallen, unfazed, easily stops the attack by grabbing the blade. Unfortunately for Grimlock, he's no match against one of the 13. Now, the Fallen got involved here because he didn't want to lose one of the angles. He needs all of them alive for the unbinding to work. Once the Chaos Trinity recovers, he reprimands them for not being able to handle this without him. Bludgeon tries to attack Grimlock, but he gets beaten back easily. The Fallen says to Grimlock, "You have no idea what you face. Not a clue. He does. Jetfire. Oh, not specifically, but he understands enough to know that fight or flight are equally futile. You, on the other hand, require further education." Grimlock punches him in the chest, and the Fallen grabs him and burns his body until he passes out. Jetfire says to the Fallen, "You're from before, aren't you? Before the Golden Age, before recorded time." The Fallen replies, "You know so little about who and what you are, about the forces at work around you, beneath you. The Golden Age? Welcome, Jetfire, to the Dark Age." The Fallen knocks out Jetfire and takes his and Grimlock's bodies. He orders the Chaos Trinity to get the third angle. When Bludgeon asks the fourth, "How do we get him?" the Fallen answers, "Leave the fourth to me." As the Chaos Trinity leaves, Shockwave awakens, and he will be getting his revenge. Returning to the Autobots, reinforcements arrive, more of their forces along with the Lightning Strike Coalition. They all do their best to overwhelm Trypticon, concentrating their firepower on him, and even the Dinobots try to get their licks in, but none of it is enough to even slow down Trypticon. He leaves the battlefield when he receives a communication from Shockwave. Trypticon tells the Autobots that he has to go because his boss got into some trouble in the neutral territories. At Iacon, Hotspot is trying to figure out why, when he and the other Protectorbots formed Defensor, they lost themselves in the fight with Devastator. Especially when compared to Devastator, their mass intellect was created to be far more efficient. First Aid tells them to take a break. Suddenly, they're attacked by the Chaos Trinity. Despite them outnumbering them, the Protectobots are getting beaten. Mindwipe controls Streetwise's mind and has him shoot First Aid. Groove tells Hotspot they need to form Defensor to overcome Mindwipe's control, but Hotspot refuses because they might lose control again. Groove gets put down, and the Chaos Trinity obtains the third angle, Hotspot. Later within Autobase, Prowl and the other Autobots discuss the escalating conflicts among the 6 factions. First, Devastator being unleashed, the Decepticon Mobile Command Base Trypticon, and Shockwave's experiment that they mentioned they have caged down in level 0. We'll learn who that is in a second. Prowl mentions that all of these things are rolled into one apocalyptic package. During the meeting, Trailbreaker shares Jetfire's theory about someone orchestrating the escalation. Their discussion is cut short by an incoming video call from Swoop, who reports from the neutral territories that Grimlock has gone missing after trying to interrupt a secret meeting between Jetfire and Shockwave, and they can't find any sign of them, only signs that a fight definitely took place. Both groups agreed to cooperate and share any information about their whereabouts. Moments after the transmission ends, alarms sound off throughout the base, signaling an intruder has entered. Trailbreaker informs Proud that the intruder is on level 1, and that Jazz, Mirage, and Sunstreaker are responding. The intruder is the Fallen. He says to them, "The simple fact of life is this. You are between me and that which I seek. Remove yourselves or meet your maker. Sooner rather than later." Despite their best efforts, the Fallen takes them all down. He speaks to Shockwave's experiment they have imprisoned, and says, "Now unless you prefer to wallow here in isolation, come with me, Blitzwing." It's never revealed why Shockwave experimented on him. I think we can just easily assume it has to do with the fact that he's a triple changer. Anyways, the Fallen has gained the last of the angles. Prowl orders Bumblebee to set up a containment field, but that doesn't stop the Fallen either. The feedback from his power destroys the console controlling the shield, causing an explosion that blows Bumblebee back. The Autobots have failed to stop him. Sometime later, at the Seal of Primus, Jetfire awakens, restrained and confused among the other angles bound to a machine, asking where he is. The Fallen says, "Do not struggle, do not speak. Understand simply that you are casualties of war, not this insignificant engagement among you. A war of the gods. For eons, a stalemate, two equal and opposite forces, locked away from each other, the one exiled and the other hidden. Until now. The Seal of Primus will break, and all chaos will follow." Suddenly, the machine fires a beam of energy at the Seal of Primus, beginning the process to awaken the god of Cybertron. The Fallen then speaks to Primus directly, saying, "Cybertron burns. Your creations thrash blindly and wildly in a churning cauldron of conflict. This is my master's design, etched by me on your world skin, a chaotic stigmata to mark his second coming. Did you believe us gone forever? The fringes of infinity were far enough? Eternity long enough? No, you knew, and so you hid, here within. You shouldn't have let them dabble, your creations. Their fumbling attempts to penetrate underspace unlocked my prison, and soon your inner fire will light the Chaos Bringer's way back." What the Fallen is referring to when he says penetrate underspace, he's talking about the space bridges. Now, if there's one thing every Transformer on Cybertron should know, it's that if you piss off Shockwave, you better expect a swift response. Because as that's going on the surface, Shockwave is attacking the Chaos Trinity. He's getting his payback, blasting Bugley and Mindwipe back. When he asks where's Bludgeon, Bludgeon does catch him off guard and lands a blow, while calling Shockwave's attack on them clumsy, and says, "You should never have come alone." Shockwave replies, "Alone? That would be illogical." That's when Trypticon and all of his Decepticon forces show up. In reality, Trypticon alone should be enough to take down the Chaos Trinity, but they're holding their own against the Decepticon forces. I can only assume that's thanks to maybe some power-up the Fallen gave them. Bludgeon tells Bugley and Mindwipe to defend the access shaft, that whatever the Fallen is doing will soon be over. Meanwhile, in the sky, Swoop is watching the battle and records and transmits the footage to Prowl and the Autobots. Since Shockwave is here, they wonder where Jetfire and Grimlock are, and why Shockwave is attacking in an area that holds no importance. Bumblebee reports to Prowl that his scans show an immense energy registering off the scale emanating from the ground there. Prowl tells Swoop he's sending Autobots to back up the Decepticons, and Swoop and the Lightning Strike Coalition agree to join in. At the Well of Sparks, the Fallen is close to awakening Primus. He says, "And so it begins. The unbinding. The energy of 4 unique sparks, each loaded with genetic potential. Together they form the angles of dissolution, the key that will unlock the seal of Primus." One thing I should mention is besides their sparks being unique and loaded with genetic potential, we're never given a reason why specifically these 4 transformers are the angles of the geometry of dissolution. The TF Wiki theorizes when it comes to Blitzwing, he was chosen because he's a triple changer, and Hotspot because he is a part of a combiner team. When it comes to Grimlock, that doesn't get revealed until the final series, Age of Wrath, where we find out he is a direct descendant of the 13. But when it comes to Jetfire, that's a mystery. I think maybe because he's considered the smartest Transformer, I don't know. I would argue that's maybe Shockwave, at least in this universe. Let me know what you guys all think about that. Eventually, Grimlock ends up awakening, and Jetfire suggests that he doesn't struggle because it'll give the machine more energy, and that he should focus on stemming the flow of the energy being taken from him. Grimlock tells him he thinks too much and he only believes in brute force. Jetfire responds, explaining that they need to work together, that he understands why he doesn't like him because they both were on the Decepticon side at one point, but he stayed in it longer. He surmises that he probably reminds Grimlock of what and who he almost was. He does mention another reason why Grimlock doesn't like him was because of some incident, but it doesn't matter because Grimlock reveals he wasn't listening. He says, sorry, missed on account of the whole breaking free thing. After he breaks free, he initially plans on attacking the Fallen, but Jetfire pleads with him not to, not only because he's too powerful, but also because whatever he's begun is bigger than both of them. He asks him to trust him because he might have a plan to contain whatever it is. On the surface, the Autobots and Lightning Strike Coalition arrive to back the Decepticons. The Chaos Trinity quickly gets overwhelmed, and Bugley gets killed. Mindwipe tells Bludgeon they can't hold them and that the Fallen's promised power isn't worth it. He suggests escaping, but that's when he sees Bludgeon is already ahead of him. He sees him fleeing the battle. When he says, "No, wait for me," at that moment, Shockwave gets up close with his blaster to his head and says, "Too late," blasting Mindwipe away. God, I love Shockwave in this series. Swoop tells him they need to work together, and Shockwave agrees. When Swoop says, "The one that got away, we should go after him," Shockwave replies, "The matter is already in hand." While Bludgeon is trying to escape, he gets blasted and taken out by Skywarp, who says, "Shockwave said you were fast. I'm faster." The Autobots and Decepticons go deep underground and make it to the door to the Well of Allsparks. Shockwave points out that the strange symbols on the door aren't on any known database. He orders Trypticon to begin blasting down the door. In the chamber, Grimlock has listened to Jetfire. Carrying Hotspot and Blitzwing's unconscious bodies, Jetfire tells him to leave and not look back. After Grimlock leaves, Jetfire radios the Autobase and tells Prowl and Bumblebee that he needs a containment field with all the power they have on the Seal of Primus, and to activate it at his signal. He approaches the Fallen, who taunts him, basically telling him it's already too late. Jetfire has Bumblebee activate the containment field, cutting off the energy to open the Seal of Primus. The Fallen says, "I have demonstrated once already that this fragile barrier cannot hold me for long." Jetfire replies, "It's not meant to." The Fallen calls him clever and says, "You seek to contain the force I have unleashed. You sense my chaotic intent, but do not fully understand." At that moment, energies from the seal are unleashed, and this energy forms a glowing hand. This is the power of Primus, who points at the Fallen and consumes his body with its energy, bursting him apart, and he, along with the energy of Primus, is sucked back into the seal. I do kind of wish Primus said something to him, but anyways, later Prowl and Shockwave meet outside the chamber and they seal the entrance with coded individual barriers, one per faction. Prowl says whatever's in there stays buried until Shockwave interrupts and says all are one. Prowl replies, catchy, yeah, something like that. Grimlock approaches Jetfire and apologizes, admitting he may have misjudged him. Jetfire says, you felt it too, didn't you? And there, that up until now we've been protected, cocooned in a bubble of blissful ignorance. But now, the walls are finally, inexorably crumbling. And out there, somewhere, another, far bigger war is looming. That's the end of Transformers War Within Dark Ages. I hope you all enjoyed it. Now, the final series, Age of Wrath and the War Within trilogy, I'm honestly not sure if I'll cover it since Dreamwave was only able to put out half the series before they went bankrupt. I would only be able to cover it up to that point, and the rest of it would be me reading the synopsis of the remaining issues that Simon Furman released. Comment below if you would like that. In the meantime, if you want more Transformers content, check out one of these videos right here and subscribe to the channel, or follow if you're listening to this on Spotify. Other than that, have an awesome day, and always remember every day to go beyond.